confession must be time for confession of a hockey card dealer. It's something a little bit new and different that you and I are
definitely
trying.
different. I liked it though. I like it.
What we've done is partnered with our hobby buddy and Chateau Gongshow roommate Sylvain, who is a card dealer. That's what he does. Like, it's part of his job, and it's a job that fascinates you and I. We both agree that we would suck at it, to put it bluntly. I'm pretty. Who would be worse, you or me? Be honest.
I think probably me, because if I saw a card I wanted, I would just buy it without. I don't care what the price is. I want that. Give me. And
I like every card. That's my problem. So I would just buy it all. And
I was thinking about this. I wouldn't be able to get rid of that emotion. Like, I think card dealers have to be able to just bundle up their emotions on personal emotions or all that stuff. And,
a lot of them aren't collectors. And I think that's good.
That's good for them to make money, I bet.
Yeah, you put it perfectly, right? You can't have that emotional attachment to the cards. And because if the card is so good, I would want to, like, sell all the bad ones. It wouldn't be worth any money. Keep all the good ones, right? That would be my big problem. So we thought it'd be fun and interesting to periodically follow kind of a regular segment, if you want to call it that, on our show, the life of a hockey card dealer. And we're, a big part of it in enlisting Sylvain and what he's agreed to do is to have a real honest look at it, right? We didn't want to bring somebody on that was gonna, I don't know, try to tell everyone why they're the bee's knees. Is that just like any job, like any passion that you have in life, there's ups and downs and twists and turns. And it's something that I'm really interested in learning more about. So yeah, we're really excited that he agreed to come on. And so really in today's first chapter, what we're going to do is get to know Sylvain a little bit, and we'll go from there. And I think every couple weeks or something like that, we'll check back in and follow the life of a card dealer. Sound good?
I want to throw this in there so we don't bury the lead. Reminder that he does work for Slab Sharks. He does affiliate work. They're a sponsor. Just remember that. If make sure we get that out there.
Has nothing to do with Slab Sharks. So
it has nothing to do with that part. I just want to make sure people are aware.
I'm happy you did that. It's very coincidental. And not that we're not always happy to promote Slab Sharks, but that wasn't the interest. This is not sponsored by them.
No,
it's more, it's something that we become friends with Sylvain, and he agreed to do to let everyone follow along. So without further ado, here's part of our conversation in chapter 1 from earlier today of Confessions of a Hockey Card Dealer.
Oh, do you want me to do some monk chants?
Pretty much. There it is. It's the church bells, folks. That means it's time for chapter 1 of Confessions of a Card Dealer, where we are welcoming Sylvain Cormier. Did I say your name right?
Yes, you did. Yeah. Nice work.
Oh my God. It took 2 years, dude.
Do you think you know French? Do you think you know French better than me? Are you challenging me on my French? Is that what you're
Well, welcome. Thank you for agreeing to do this. This will be fun, I think.
Thank you for having me, Josh and Troy. I'm pretty excited, and it does sound like a lot of fun. It might be a little scary, but it might be fun too. So it's my kind of enjoying.
Don't worry, nobody listens. It's not scary. Okay. Go. So we already kind of gave the premise. You've agreed to come on a couple times a month and let us really live vicariously through you and follow the life of a card dealer, because Troy and I'm pretty sure, would be the worst card dealers ever. The whole idea terrifies me, Sylvain. And so very, very excited to get the inside scoop from you. And then really the whole point of this is to follow your journey a little bit and go through the ups and downs, the awesome days, the bad days, and see what life is really like doing what you do. But before we get into the dealing, the wheeling and dealing part, I want to learn a little bit about you. So we know your name is Sylvain. It took us 2 years to be able to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Where do you live?
Okay. So I live in Moncton, New Brunswick, which is a small city in Atlantic Canada.
Is that in the ocean? Are you like in the ocean on an
Is that real? Are you sure, Troy? Do we believe?
There is an island, PEI, which is Prince Edward Island, is about an hour drive from here, an hour and 15-minute drive from here. Yeah.
Okay, what province is it in?
It's in a province called New Brunswick.
New Brunswick.
It's got 3 cities, but the province itself is smaller than, like, the population of the province itself is smaller than Ottawa. So
wait. There's 3 towns in your whole province?
3 cities in the province, but they're all pretty small.
It's like Hogwarts, one of them. Is that the
idea? No, I am a magician, but no, Hogwarts isn't.
Okay. You are kind of a magician, and I'm going to explain why right now. You speak perfect English, but it is not your first language, and that will always be to me the most. Other than you're a very, very nice guy, the most interesting thing about you. How the heck did you learn to speak English so good? And then tell us why we're so bad at French.
Well, thank you for saying that. New Brunswick is the only officially bilingual province in Canada, although Canada is officially a bilingual country.
Shots fired.
The language, I grew up in a small fishing town 30 minutes from Moncton, and it's a small population of maybe 2,000 people. And what we talk is not necessarily English or French. It's like a mishmash of both. It's like a dialect of both. But my mom had a lot of English friends, and I just got exposed to English very young. And I played a lot of, I was really into video games, and I kind of taught myself how to learn English after I learned how to read English after I learned how to read French. But grade 2 or 3, and I think it's common with people from my town. But the funny thing is, a lot of people from my town that I love my town. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of people who like stay there and don't really explore, they're not really good at English or proper French. So if they go outside of New Brunswick,
sounds like us.
Yeah, they'll struggle. They'll struggle in English and they'll struggle in French. Yeah, I guess I was just lucky to be exposed with a lot of English. And I remember actually, I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, and there was a girl about my age, and I said, "Oh, that's tree." I said tree for 3, right? She said, "It's not tree, it's 3." And I remember that moment sticking into my head and being like, okay, I can't get made fun of for not speaking proper English anymore. And I made a decided effort to not have an accent. And I think because I started at a young age, and I mean, I thank her, like she might have made fun of me and might have bullied me back then, but it paid off because I really made a decision to get rid of it. And here we are.
Well, that is crazy. Yeah, because French was like the first language spoken in your house, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. There we go.
I was raised in French, yeah. But
now you are a part.
Most music and TV that we watched, like French stuff, was not considered cool growing up in my town. So exposure was 95% English, but school was French.
So be honest, when you listen to our show, how many times do you like close your eyes and shake your head slowly when we try to say
I actually, not that often, because I'm used to having my name butchered in English. My place of employment is 99% English. When I go to card shows, unless it's in Quebec, and even in Quebec, I want to say 50% of the interactions are in English. So I'm used to getting my name butchered. So when I hear the show and I know a French name's coming up, I'm not surprised. So I don't shake my head, but I actually see it as an opportunity to teach you guys.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so that was going to kind of lead into my next question, that you were talking a little bit about shows. As a card dealer in Canada, is it a advantage to be able to be bilingual and speak 100%. Both French and English?
Absolutely, especially New Brunswick being so close to Quebec, and Quebec collectors being so passionate and active in the hobby. It 100% it is an advantage. And a lot of New Brunswick for a long time in the 90s and the early aughts was the call center capital of, I think, like North America or even the world, because we would take on French and English calls across Canada. So it's been an advantage. If you're bilingual, it's an advantage in any customer facing role.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so when, where, why, and how were you crazy enough to dip your toe into the world of making a living or supplementing your living through sports cards, in particular hockey cards?
So this started back when I was a kid. I want to say I was 5 or 6 years old, 7 years old. My dad owned a restaurant. When I was born, he already owned a restaurant. It was my grandmother's restaurant. He bought it from my grandmother, and that restaurant had, and it was a seafood restaurant. The community I grew up in was a big fishing village, and it was fried seafood with like fish and chips, clam and chips, stuff like that, fried scallops and chips. And it was more like a takeout restaurant, is what we called it here. I don't know if you guys call them takeout restaurants. Yeah. But right next to it, I want to say opened in 89, maybe 1990. I would have been 5 by then. A little hobby shop opened up. So I had a local card shop next to my dad's restaurant.
Nice.
And I had my cousins who are 8 and 10 years older than me. They were teenagers at the time. I looked up to them like a lot. And I remember there were like, now it's a junk wax era, but I remember there being, Ken Griffey Jr. rookies I was all excited about. And there were a few, big cards that were excited. And I started collecting baseball because I played baseball then. But my dad would buy sealed wax, hoping it would go up, kind of like everyone did back then. But obviously that didn't pan out.
Yep.
So fast forward a few years, I was always into collectibles, but it kind of evolved. I was diagnosed late in life with ADHD. It explained why all my hobbies and interests would kind of just rotate. But I always liked collectibles. So it went from sports cards to video games to Magic cards, Pokemon cards, and then back to video games. So in my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, I was 19 and 20. I worked at a video game store. So, and let's rewind a little bit. When I played Magic and I'd come into town and we'd have Friday night Magics, I was obsessed with looking up, like buying the magazine and looking up the values and just doing the math on what I had was worth, what I was looking for was worth. And I really enjoyed that part. Like I'd spend hours alone, just like looking at what I had, writing down what the values were compared to what the new issue of Wizard. No, it wasn't Wizard. It was a magazine that showed the value of the cards. And I would often go to town with my friends because I didn't have a car and they did, but they weren't comfortable trading. So I was kind of like their trade ambassador. So when a guy from the city would approach my friend, and they were English and my buddies were French, he was like, "Do you trade?" And they'd point at me. So I was kind of like their ambassador, making sure that they didn't kind of get screwed over, making sure that the trade was fair. So, and then fast forward a few years, I worked at a video game store. I ended up managing the store for a while. So I opened up an eBay around then, and I started flipping video games sometimes when the games that the store didn't want, or I sometimes straight up buy it from the store and then put it up on my eBay when the store I felt was asking less than what I felt it was worth. So I would do that. And when the whole PS3 craze came, I ended up camping overnight at Walmart. I don't necessarily believe in doing that now because you're taking away from the people who actually want to play the PlayStation. But I was 21, 22. I was a kid. I had ambitions. And so I flipped a few PlayStation 3s. So I did that for a while. I just always had an interest in buying something and either flipping it or moving it. And my heart and soul went into the customer experience the entire time. I always made sure my communication was good. I always make sure that the experience of the buyer was top notch. And that was through either, working at the video game store or my own eBay selling video games. So fast forward to the pandemic, and I hit some hard times. I get laid off. I had already, due to losing my father before the pandemic, I'd gone on a mental health leave, and it was kind of really, I had to fight with insurance to get funding, like to just to stay afloat. And then I get back on my feet, the pandemic hits, and then I get laid off. So it was like a double whammy of financial issues.
Gotcha.
And so I decided to sell my house. I bought my house during it was really cheap. It was in 2014. It wasn't that long after, the market, it was definitely a buyer's market when I bought it. And fast forward, we're late 2020 and I'm in a financial bind, and I decide to sell my house. It's me and my spouse decide it's time to sell the house. While I'm packing, I find some cards. The sale of the house is only in 4 or 5 months, so we do have time. But I find the cards. This is like in December. I find a few Magic cards worth anywhere between, I don't know, 30 and $100. Nothing too crazy. But I also found a few Yager O-Pee-Chee Premier rookies. And so I start looking on Facebook Marketplace to see if I can find. By the way, I had no idea we were in the middle of a huge card boom. Like I had no idea.
So that was accidental. I kind of figured that it was the pandemic sports card boom that piqued your interest.
No, I didn't even know. I had no idea. And then I start looking up on I start looking for cards on Facebook Marketplace, and I made contacts relatively quick. There were guys flipping not that far from where I lived. There was one guy, he had been a longtime collector. He didn't live far from where I lived. So I immediately made contacts that way. And I was laid off and I had a lot of time on my hands. And I said, well, let me see if I can move what I have now and reignite, like dust off my eBay store. And I did exactly that. And I ended up buying a case of, so this is a few months after I ended up buying a case of Series 2 of 2020, 2021 with Stützle and Kaprizov.
Here we go.
So I buy the case and I film it. A lot of my thoughts, actually, I wanted to make content and sell cards. By this, I'm already a top rated seller on eBay. It really didn't take long. I would buy lots from my buddy and I would auction some. I'd buy it now some. And within 2 or 3 months, I was already a top rated seller on eBay, which, I was pretty pumped about. And when I bought the case, I think I paid about $1,900 Canadian for the case. And then I immediately sold everything that was in it. And I think I sold it for about $2,900. So I made $1,000 minus eBay fees. I probably made like $800.
Sure.
And I'm thinking, wow, this is easy.
Well, you mentioned you thought you would do content and selling cards. Well, there's more money in selling cards, just so you know, and I'm not sure there's any money in selling cards. So you made a wise decision not to do cards. So you had a couple early wins, right? And that always gets your juices going forward. And so I'm assuming then that you just sort of continue to gradually do more and more and more. But when was it where you thought for the first time, I wonder if I could do this as my full-time job?
So I actually decided pretty early, I never questioned, I wonder if I can do this as a full-time job. As soon as I found my cards and I dusted off my old eBay, I'm like, Sylvain, you've been kind of coasting life and it got you to where you are. It's really time that you follow your passion and that you do something with your life that involves collectibles. So day one, my goal was to do cards full time one day. I'm still not there yet.
Something clicked right at that moment with you. And
100%.
And how long ago was that about?
Almost 4 years ago. It was end of 2020, December 2020.
Okay, so if we could go back in our hot tub time machine to December of 2020, what would Sylvain of today tell the moment that clicked? What's 3 pieces of advice you'd give yourself?
Wow, that's a good question. Okay, and most of it has to do more with human interaction than it does with the actual cards. But it's don't be so naive. When someone is pumped about their card that they're trying to sell to you, they're usually overvaluing it. So
always overvaluing it? Could you say always overvaluing it?
Almost over, yeah. So always overvaluing their stuff. I noticed that pretty early, actually. I'm that I would overvalue my stuff, and then by the time I sold it, I'm like, wow, this is 25% less than I expected. But because I sold so quickly, so early, I feel like I got over that hurdle pretty quickly. But I would still say that other people, I didn't realize how other people hadn't gone over that hurdle yet.
Mm.
It's a huge hurdle to go through if you want to have success in the hobby. That loss aversion is it's a huge barrier. You have to be okay to lose money. So that number one would be, don't be so naive. When someone's excited about their cards, but they're trying to move it at the same time, they're not really that excited about their card because they're trying to get rid of it. So that also, try not to please everyone. It's going to be impossible to please everyone. If you're doing trades or you're buying from someone or you're selling to someone, it's okay to walk away from a deal, even if you have a few hours invested or a few days worth of back and forth invested. It's okay. And if it takes a few days to actually come to an agreement, by then it's probably time to walk. You're more than likely going to want to walk away from it than actually.
Are you a people pleaser by nature?
I am. And
so is it hard for you to do that, to learn how to say, this just isn't the right deal? I'm sorry, we can't do it.
Totally. I'm still actively working on it. So yes, very much so. It's actually the thing I'm working on the most right now is, having difficult conversations and not pleasing people, because I hate disappointing people and I hate being misunderstood. So I'll say yes sometimes when I don't benefit from it. I'm getting way better. I want to say in the last even 4 or 5 months, it's been way better. And but yes, so that's 2. I guess number 3 would be don't prospect. Don't prospect. Move as fast as you can. That's the other thing. I want to say,
it seems like that it's the ups and downs are almost impossible to plan around. Like if you're going to get involved in prospecting, you have to buy a card and sell it within like 2 days.
Yes, absolutely. My mentality now is that I try to get the best deal that I explain to the person on the other side of the table. Look, I'm a vendor. I've got, I had to pay for the trip. I had to pay for my stay. I had to pay for this table. I can offer you, 75 to 70% of what the card is worth. And I'm going to try to sell it as close to 100% of what it's worth, but I'm probably not going to sell it at 100%. I'm probably going to sell it at 90 because someone wants a deal,
Sure.
So my mentality now is to get something at a really good price, at a great price, and then try to sell it at a good price as soon as I can. So I want to say in mid 2022, I had probably like 200 to 220 graded cards, graded young guns. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll sell about 30% of this, but I should have sold 100% of it, right? Because by fast forward a year and most of it had gone down like 75%.
How many card dealers like you do you think there are, like even in the province you live or in nearby? Is there not a lot of people like you? Is there a lot of people like you? Do you guys have like conventions that you go to and sit around and smoke cigarettes and talk about war stories or something like that? Or?
So if the question is, are there many card vendors in my area? The question is yes, actually quite a bit. If you're asking if there are quite a lot like me, no.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose there could be like from doing a couple of Facebook marketplace listings to having more of a like legitimate operation, right?
Well, yeah. And we have quite a few, we have a lot of small shows in Moncton, Fredericton, St. John, which are the 3, cities in New Brunswick. Yeah. And then Halifax. Halifax has a pretty decently sized show. It is still just from like 9 to 1, 9 to 2 on a Saturday. I think it could be longer, but that Halifax show, I want to say there's anywhere between 70 and 90 vendors that'll set up on a given show. And most of us, by now, I moved on from eBay, selling cards on eBay, and started selling more at shows, because as much as I enjoyed the eBay thing and the reach was great, what I do now is I will try to move something at a show, and if it doesn't move, I'll auction it through Slab Sharks.
Yeah, you're affiliated with Slab Sharks too. You want to explain that real briefly?
I am, yeah. So the first So keep in mind, day one, I was like, I'm gonna find a way to to do this as a living. I'm still not 100% there yet. This is still very much just a side thing, but I knew that if I wanted to make this as a living, I had to go to shows, and I had to go to big shows, and Toronto, was the big show. And I also realized, actually, Josh, pretty early, after my graded lot of SGC Young Guns fell in value, I realized I'm not going to make I'm not going to make a living on just flipping, buy, sell, trade. I need to also offer the hobby a service. So I actually started offering people around here to sell their cards on my eBay. And a lot of them were uncomfortable with the idea of auction. So I would just, okay, well, I'll set a buy it now, and I'll message you when I get an offer. And that was fine. But one of the reasons why I didn't move most of my cards was because I was offering this service to people, and that took up most of my time. So I was selling other people's cards, and it was way harder work than I realized. And I remember when Slab Sharks got announced, and they were going to the Toronto show in November of 22. I remember asking Karn a few questions, and he could tell in the way I asked my questions that I was a one-man show. And he said, "Oh, dude, you need an operation. Like, you can't just be a one-man show."
Yeah, to be a consigner, it's a game of volume, right?
Yeah,
you have to move thousands of cards and make it's like making a few pennies on thousands of sales in order to make a good living, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
100%. Yes, absolutely. So he could tell in the way that I was asking my questions that I was a one-man show. He said, "Oh, you need an operation." And I also asked him a follow-up question, which was like, how could I rent, if I'm planning on going to the Toronto show, how can I rent those display cases at the Toronto show? He's like, "Well, how about you just rent a booth from our booth, because we have such a large space that we can have an extra space for you." So I was, yeah, sure, great. So I ended up doing that. It went really well. I networked really well. I also realized that I had overpriced my cards because I did do a lot of trades. I didn't do that many sales. And I remember I had an SGC 10 Stutzla, and I had it priced at like $240. And I walked by a booth that had a PSA 10 Stutzla that had it priced at $210. And my gut just sank. And I was like, this is going to be tough. And I'm going to have to be a little bit looser on my prices here. And I was, and I'm glad I was, because I did end up networking quite a bit. And I did end up talking, to the Slab Sharks guys and asking if they were planning on wanting representation out east. And they said, well, funny enough, we're going to have an affiliate program. And come January of 23, I became an affiliate with Slab Sharks. And come January 24, I became the director of affiliates for Eastern Canada of Slab Sharks.
Nice.
So just going to the Toronto show consistently pays off more than the money or profit that I sometimes make on flipping cards.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I think that's a really good backstory. We're gonna, again, the whole point of this is an ongoing thing where we're gonna follow your story, and so wanted to start with a little bit more of the background so people get a chance to know you. But before we let you go today, what's your focus right now? So what are you working on that will be able to get some sort of progress report on when you come back in a couple weeks? Is there any like big shows upcoming or deals that you're working on?
Good question. What's funny is this time of year, like there's quite a lull. Like after May and June, like there's not much.
We're the kings of perfect timing. Troy.
It's like starting a Hockey Cards podcast during the off season. Who would do that? Oh wait, we did.
Yeah, we did.
Right. But I guess I did.
But you got to be making moves in the off season too, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. So I did just mail like quite a few cards to PSA. I did actually receive a PSA order today. The grades are they're not fantastic. So my goal is going to be, I'm going to move a few of them. I'm also going, so I sent a batch to grade the other day as well.
How often do you do that? Is that like a big part of buying raw cards and trying to come up with an eye, and because that's where you can make a lot of margin, is going from raw to graded, right? If they grade well.
Yes, exactly. If they grade well. It used to be my only play. I would buy graded and raw to grade. But now I want to say I send a lot less. Like, I'm okay buying something already graded if it's already a good deal. Yeah. My philosophy used to be like, well, I'd rather, try to sell something at 100% profit and keep that churning than, try to make 20% on a PSA 10 Matthews.
Okay, I have a question about PSA for you. So as a guy who sends a lot of cards to PSA, do you find their grading to be inconsistent?
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Is that frustrating to you? Because I assume that by now you feel like your eye is getting better at identifying, but yet if I was in your shoes, that would really bother me, because I feel like that it's a roll of the dice, whatever you get back.
And that's why I've pivoted a ton since I've started. And I'm one of those guys that's willing to pivot early. And I think that's why I'm finding relative success in this, is because that used to be my main model, was to buy raw and grade. And now I'm like, well, if I'm going to get 30% off a PSA 10 that I know is easy to move, why not just buy it as a PSA 10? So now I want to do it. I want to say it's like 50-50. I used to grade, I want to say maybe on average about 40 cards a month, and I'd send it every 2 months. So I'd probably have 80 to 100 cards out every 60 days, every 45 to 60 days. So I went. Are
you a crack and resub guy? So if you're like, there's no way this is a 9, and have you found that when you do crack and that you get different grades when they come back?
So to answer, I'll clarify. If it's like a I don't know, like a Dustin Wolf. Like the Wolf PSA 9 that I thought was a 10. I'm not going to crack that. But if it's a McDavid, you know what I mean? I'm
just curious if you found that works, that eventually, because you hear a lot of people like very glib say, well, just send it in until you get a 10. And is there any truth to that?
So actually, I'm going to reel back my statement here. I don't often crack PSA slabs to send it back to PSA. I'll crack a BGS slab that looks like a PSA 10, and I'll send that to,
because there can be a big lift in there.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. So, but like if it's a big card like a Matthews or a Crosby or an Ovi or a McDavid that I'm pretty sure is a 10 and it comes back an 8 or 9, I'm going to try a second time. I'll try at least twice. I'm not going to. I actually just got a McDavid back that I thought was a 10 the first time, came back a 9. I cracked it, and then it came back an 8. And I decided then and there, I'm going to cut my loss. I'm going to sell it as an 8.
Yeah.
Like it was a 9.5 True Gem Plus from Beckett. I cracked it, sent it, comes back a 9. I'm like, how is this a 9? So I send it, and now it's
comes back an 8.
Like, oh. So, and they not
showing me the right way.
Well, but look, that's like honesty, at least. Like, hey, sometimes it goes the other way. It's not all.
Oh yeah.
Every time I talk to people at shows and stuff, it's always, I said this was like 8, and I submitted, I got 10. It's like stuff goes the other way too.
So, I want to say a lot of people in the hobby. I love collectors and I love hobbyists, but a lot of cards come through my hand. So if you're of the scarcity mindset and you have a beautiful raw McDavid that you sent and you got an 8 or a 9 and you're sure it's a 10, there's nothing wrong with sending it a few times. But for me, especially if you're going to keep it, if you really want a McDavid 10, if you send it 2 or 3 times, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
But every time you send it, you're digging into your potential margin.
Yeah.
Or you're making your losses worse if you don't ultimately get that 10 grade.
Yes, and I know that another Mint McDavid is going to find its way to me one day. So I'm not hanging on to the idea of this needs to be a 10 for me to make money. I'm okay losing. I've realized that part of the game is losing money and cutting your losses when you need to.
You have to free up cash, right, in order to invest in other. So don't hang on to. And I think that would be my problem. Is I don't like losing money.
Yeah.
And so I would just buy and probably never sell because nothing would go up. But okay, well, like I said, this is going to be a recurring bit. And so now I'm actually kind of excited. This is very good information. And you did a beautiful job of kind of letting us and everyone else know who you are. But now it's going to get fun when we have you back on next time and we sort of follow the nitty gritty and the day-to-day life. But before we let you go, if anyone has any cards or deals or cards they're looking for or anything that they might want hobby related that they think you might be able to help them with, how do people contact you?
Best way to reach me would be through Instagram. That's @lashwine is my handle. Or you can email me at sylvain@slabsharks.com.
Okay.
I'm going to throw something in here when you said, like, what can we look forward to next? I did buy Bobby Orr rookie card that's being graded. So, you know, I guess to answer that would be grade
when does
reveals.
that come back? Yeah, grade reveals. That would be cool.
So in like a month and a half or two, I should have some pretty sweet cards back from grading. So that's something to kind of look forward to.
Nice.
Awesome.
All right. Our dealer in the books. Thank you so much, Svan, and we will look forward to seeing you again next time, bud.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Troy. I appreciate it, guys.
All right, Troy, did we learn anything?
Oh, we learned a bunch. We learned history of Sylvain, how he came. I love the backstory on how he came into cards and collectibles and growing up next to or having a family business next to a hobby shop, and then kind of growing from that aspect on. And then it's amazing. It's really interesting, the backstories of people that get into it. So
have you ever heard him speak French? Is he lying?
Yes.
Because he speaks English so good.
He speaks French. Yeah.
How does he speak English so good and not have an accent? Or
are we supposed to say speaks English so well? Like we can't even say it right. Like I do the same thing. I say good all the time. I always like, well. I'm like,
how do Sylvain talk good times? Yeah, it shows my Iron Range education.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be looking forward to checking back in a couple weeks or so and see. And that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah.
To kind of follow the ups and downs.
Yep.
And see what.
It's
what
exactly
happens.
why we're doing it. Ups and downs, not just all ups. They're all downs. We all go through life.